So he literally was here like 30 seconds ago. And he's like, Dad, I got to take the car. I'm like, okay, I'm going live.
Oh my gosh.
How old is your youngest?
My youngest is 4.
Okay. You got a couple of more years to go.
Yes, I do. But it goes by so fast. Like she's going to kindergarten. And I'm just like, how did that even happen this fast?
Hold on tight, Lauren. Hold on tight. My oldest is 25, and she'll be coming over this afternoon to go down to the river, to the Hudson River, where they take all the prom pictures.
Right.
And I swear to you, Lauren, I can remember almost every minute of the day Nicole was born 25 years ago. And I'll never
Aw.
forget the moment after everybody left, my ex-wife's parents left and the place cleared out and the lights were off in the maternity room where Debbie was laying down. I'll never forget the nurse's shadow coming into the doorway. And she said, would you like to see your daughter now?
Aw.
And she rolled her in. I will never forget. And here, my youngest is 18.
Oh my God. I know. It's
So
crazy.
take the time. Take the time. Lauren Doyle, thank you. I should have asked you, do you use both last names or do you truncate it to Lauren Doyle?
Yes, Lauren Doyle is
Okay.
fine. So many people know me as Lauren Capotosto, or Cap as they called me. But that nickname has kind of gone by the wayside. And yeah, I go by Lauren Doyle.
Okay. Because I never asked you that. And I was like, okay, what does she want me to call her? Um, Lauren, you are in Raleigh
Yeah.
and you've been in business how many years?
So I have been part of the travel mechanic for 8 years,
Okay.
give or take.
Yep.
Previous to that, I was a teacher, but my mom has run the company, I would say 10 years. It was in existence prior to me joining, and
Right.
now she's retiring and I'm heading up the travel mechanic.
So you have seen quite a bit in this industry, even in that short period. You've
Yes.
seen quite a bit. I started in travel in 87. I left it for a little while. After I left Virgin Atlantic, I joined American Express and financial services side of the business. Although consumer travel reported to us, to my senior vice president, but I kind of stepped away for travel for a little while, and it changed dramatically. But now in the last 5 years, of course, we're going through even more.
Yeah. Even the
So
last year, I would say we've gone through a lot.
before we go through the questions about changing the industry and the time that you've been in this industry, what would you say is the most significant change to you as a travel advisor?
Well, I think there's kind of two things that pop out, and I feel like I can't not talk about the
Please,
pandemic in 2020.
that's okay. You should.
That was the big one, or
Yes.
still is, and we're definitely going to be dealing with that. I think, we all want it over with, but it's going to be with us here for a little while for sure. And then I think the other thing is the big shift in social media. I think, the past 8 years, it's really kind of totally picked up but at the beginning you could kind of ignore it, but now you can't. I mean, you absolutely can't even think about ignoring social media platforms. So,
And we're going to talk a lot about that because the survey results do talk a little bit about how travel advisors predominantly use their own content and they feel their own content is the most productive in engaging sales prospects and clients, and also eventually leading to a sales lead, actually doing something versus the other stuff that's kind of thrown at you guys. So at the very highest level, I'm not going to pull up all the slides and the pie charts and the bar charts. But one of the big things that came across in the research that Travel Business Mastermind sponsored is that travel advisors are very satisfied with the way they're trained around features and benefits and marketing. That anywhere from 3 out of 4 to 9 out of 10 travel advisors feel that suppliers and destinations do a great job at that. But when we ask 2 questions about the sales funnel, does that training help you identify high value sales leads? And how does that training help you move somebody through the sales funnel if they're objecting to what you're offering as a travel advisor, and then getting them to close? What's your personal experience, and how do you feel about those research results? Does that sound right to you? Do you dispute it? What's your general sense about that story I just kind of spoke through
Yeah,
from the
I mean,
research?
just to be totally honest, I think marketing is such a complex thing.
Yeah.
And I just don't see, yes, suppliers sort of do a good job or tell you, here's the email blast you should send out, but that's not really marketing. It's not a marketing plan for your specific business.
Right.
And I just think that, I just think it's so complex that you really need to understand so much about your own business to take what the suppliers are showing you and make it your own. And in that is a lot of work.
That point that you just made is the crux of everything that we're going to talk about today. If you were paying close attention to Lauren, what she said is your business is unique. And even though this material may look gorgeous, the videos may look gorgeous, the photos may look gorgeous, there's an email that they forward to you that's got a lot of good information. If that's not tailored to your ideal client, the way you normally market, what you like to sell, it's going to be out of context for the person who's following you on social or for the person who receives your email. And how do you tailor it to you? Do you have any tips in that regard? How do you take all of this stuff and then the complexity of, let's say you sell 8 to 10 different suppliers and you focus on 5 or 6 destinations for the bulk of your business. Now you got that layer of complexity because not every supplier and destination is going to give you quality stuff. And how do you break that down? Is there anything that's been working for you as a business owner that you're like, here's kind of how I think it through and then get it done?
Yeah, I do think I made a commitment to myself, and I tell every agent on my team, you have to show up consistently. So I think that's, you've got to make that commitment to yourself, or you just got to get that in your mind. Marketing's not going to work with one day you wake up and you just do this here or do that there. You've got to have a plan, and part of that plan, whatever your plan is, needs to be showing up consistently.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's kind of the foundation of it, for sure. Now, yeah, you could go more specific in there. And I do break down kind of my social media when I plan my social media. I don't want to just do sales all day.
Right.
I show up and show myself. Even before this video, I showed a selfie of me in the mirror just in my bedroom. Thank God I made my bed today.
Thank God I was on my phone and I saw you posted that, because I wasn't on my phone today.
So yeah, you're kind of like, why are you doing that? Well, I tagged Travel Business Mastermind. I showed to my followers, like maybe they don't care, but I had like DMs like, oh, I love your shirt or whatever. Oh, I'll try to tune in. So right. It's just showing up consistently. I'm showing that I'm human and I'm real. So yeah, the suppliers have great fancy photos and great videos. That needs to be sprinkled in to who you are.
And once again, you've nailed the answer perfectly. Is that, when a supplier or destination goes out and has a photographer, very professional photographer, take pictures, they're really looking for sort of a stock photo type of style. And as Lauren just pointed out, authenticity, especially on social media, is so much more important than how glorious the picture looks. If the picture looks glorious and the couple doesn't look like your ideal client, looks like they're professional models, that's going to bring down the engagement. And that's ultimately what any business owner is looking for. Is not that somebody clicks and likes it, because you really can't do much with a like. But if somebody sees your post, and as Lauren just said, they DM you, They're engaging in a conversation and a relationship with you. If that was a supplier who sees Lauren doing this and they're like, wow, Lauren's talking about the industry and look at her, but she's authentic. She's, getting ready in her home office just like I am. That connection to want to work with Lauren is deeper, and trusting Lauren and liking Lauren is deeper than stock stuff.
Right. Totally.
So, what would you like to see specifically from suppliers and destinations to improve your ability to do that kind of engagement with the people that you're looking to sell to? Is there something that you would really love for them to start changing their mindset, or giving different instructions to that wonderful photographer who's going to show up, in 3 weeks and update the company's, photography?
Yeah, so I think that I would love to see suppliers maybe put out some FAMs or put out something that gives us a plan. Or even if they were kind of to talk to us about having more of a plan or how to sprinkle ourselves into their products, which I know it's kind of difficult because everyone's so unique. But I think that, from suppliers, if we do get some help with hashtags, maybe we get who their ideal client is, then we can kind of take that and say, oh yeah, I could focus on that ideal client this week or on Tuesdays. And then I'm going to switch it up, or, however you kind of do it. There's so many ways to do it, but I think getting those ideas, because that takes time. I mean, even market research for myself, I'm like, it takes time. Even when I tell my agents and they're like, no one wants to do this. No, you don't. But that's the hard work we all have to do. But if, a supplier could say, well, this is who we've painted a few of our ideal clients, because no one has one. And especially a big brand, let me tell you, they don't have one.
Right.
They could share some stuff with us. Maybe if we're talking about romance, honeymoons, and destination weddings, will give us, what does, a sandals bride looks like? What does an El Dorado bride looks like?
Yes.
That will help us on social media for sure.
Yeah. I have a friend of mine, maybe you know her. She's the funniest, most authentic person I know. Jennifer Borg. She owns Borg and Villa in Jamaica.
Yes.
Yep. And, you can tell by following her on Instagram and on Facebook who her ideal client is. She's got 3 or 4 of them, but they definitely fit people follow her and they get a feeling for her. And as a result, she's got this really tight community of people that over and over refer people, oh, we had a great time with Jen at this place in Jamaica. And I think that's so critical, what you just said, that if the suppliers could just say, look, we know, let's take Live Aqua in Cancun.
Mm-hmm.
We know that we have 4 or 5 ideal clients. We have couples between 40 and 55 years old. Really big market for us. Couples looking to get away, don't want to bring the kids. Our place is great. It's not too far from the airport. Everything's contained, lots of good food. The mall's across the street, yada, yada. We've got girl getaways. We know young women want to come here, hang out at the pool, drink, have a great time. We've got romance couples. We've got destination weddings. And, I don't know what the 5th would be, but if they knew that and could help you guys understand how to position certain pictures with text that says something, or as you pointed out much earlier, schedule the FAMs so that you could then capture your own unique, authentic photographs while you're on property for your ideal client. Schedule it so that you guys could go do that. Now, all of a sudden, the 2 parties are really linked up tight.
Yeah.
Have you ever studied any? So how many preferred suppliers would you say you have? And if it's 3 dozen, that's okay.
I do, I do have a lot of preferred suppliers, and our agency does. But I do kind of focus it. Let's just say, my top ideal client is honeymooners, all inclusive, especially this year. And those I'm sending to, I'm sending the quotes out for the same 3 to 5 properties, because I know the properties, I know the ideal client, I know when my ideal client fits those. So yeah, I would say it's probably 3 to 5.
Have you ever studied the resort's social media feed to see what works the most, to kind of understand what pictures and images, and certainly to inform you if you ever go down there for a fam trip, how would you position your camera to engage with your ideal client? Have you ever done that?
I haven't. I'll be honest with you.
That's okay.
I will do some hashtag research for sure, but I don't have the time, or really never thought about going on a deep dive down my,
I'll do it for you. You tell me which resorts it is, and I'll go take a look for you.
I need to do that. I do. I need to put that on my, social media planning. I think that's a great idea. I know when I just went on a self-fam, I went by myself and I did particular brands. I did Charismas and Eldorados,
Yep.
Generations, things like that. I saw 5 properties. I was like, hold my camera. I knew what I needed.
Right.
But when I looked back, I was like, oh, I could have gotten so much more. And even though I thought I planned, it could have gone better. And that's how you always look at these things, and you learn from what you did and you can make it even better. I'm happy I did get a lot of myself in photos, but I didn't get enough. I needed
it's hard.
It's so hard. And I was by myself. So I kept asking these people to take take my pictures. And then it started raining, and then this and that. So, I think what was missing from that, and what we as an industry can improve on, is having more experiences where we can not fake it, but kind of show, oh, well, if you stay at El Dorado, you get an included tequila tasting. And I saw that and I was like, oh my God, that is so cool. Like, that is a really cool thing, because if you haven't really tasted tequila, except doing your tequila shot, lick it, slam it, suck it situation, you don't really know. That could have been such a great experience for me to go crazy on social media, but I snapped a picture of it and we moved on. We didn't do the experience. So I couldn't relay the specifics experience. So that's just a quick example of how FAMs and resorts can help us a little more by actually giving us engageable content. Don't just give us the still pictures.
I have been following for years at least 100 to 200 travel advisors, somewhere in the middle there, and watching them on fam trips. How do they curate their content? And because so many started traveling again late last summer, fall into this year, I did see a pickup in the experience posts versus here's how beautiful the room is. I saw more people doing the, mole, cooking class and filming it. I did see somebody do a tequila tasting class. I forget who it was. But there were so many advisors who I think are getting the message. You're right. If we could see the same support from the suppliers and the destinations that focus on the experiences, because that apparently, according to all the research, is what consumers are looking for. They want to go do something. They've been so locked down. They want to go do something with someone they love, someone who's a friend. Absolutely. What would be the number one thing you would change about fam trips today? If we could get the resorts to change the way they do fam trips, what would be the number one thing you would try to change?
Well, I think there needs to be a certain amount of planning before the fam. And I know this is maybe not the supplier's responsibility, but they could help out. Here are the hashtags you need to use when you're on property. Right. Here are some key phrases or a cheat sheet on what rooms am I actually seeing. So I have the lingo right then and there, because there is a point of going live just like we are now. Like, there's authenticity. You don't know what I'm going to say next, right? So this is
I trust you.
This is the real snapshot. So I think the planning piece is really missing from there's a pre-fam.
Agreed.
You need to do that to build up your audience's excitement. And then you also need to plan like outfit changes, hair change, like bring accessories, those things. I mean,
especially for you women. It's not as bad for people like me, but
know, but showing a hat or doing a little something, because video and social media needs to be exciting or people are going to get bored. So having those, that little interest there. Now, I'm not an expert in video by any means, but I know you got to keep your audience engaged. So I think the pre-planning piece is definitely missing a little bit. And the suppliers can do a better job on that too.
Do you normally get on a fam trip sort of the hour by hour sort of itinerary so that you can plan? If they're not telling you, hey, we're going to be going to this resort and staying here for 2 nights, this resort for 2 nights, and in between you're going to see these other 2 resorts in our brand. Do they give you like, we're going to leave at 9 o'clock, we're going to take a bus, it takes 45 minutes, we get here, you're going to have 30 minutes downtime to walk around the resort, then you've got to show up at this conference room for a little bit of training, have lunch with this general manager? Is it down to that detail or no?
Not the ones I've experienced. There are some details there for sure. And I think that's, varies on the better FAMs and not. I just find like with my busy life and running this business, it's super hard. I have 2 little kiddos at home. It's hard for me to get away. So I find sometimes going by myself is just easier, or with one other agent friend or whatever is kind of better for me in my life right now. Now, I know that's not everyone, but I would love something like what you're talking about. Like, sign me up.
It's interesting. So when we researched and we asked the travel advisors, there were 381 travel advisors who participated in the survey. When we broke it out and said, obviously the pandemic interrupted the last 12 months, but, thinking about the last full year that you were traveling, what was sort of the average number of group trips that you went on and individual? And there were more people who took group trips because they're cheaper. But even on the independent side, a lot of them were taking the bulk. We're taking 2 to 3 independent fam trips a year and spending. What was the, let me see if I can pull up the results. I think the spend on the individual fams, if I can find it, was like double what it was on the group fams. Yeah. So it's a serious investment for you guys. Plus, like you said, the time. And if you're a mom who owns a business and has small children, holy cow, the extra complexity now that's thrown on your planning schedule.
I know. And most travel agents are women. Yep. And I'm generalizing here, and most people have kiddos or they like this work-life balance. So where you could work from home. I mean, now I know everyone does, but it definitely is a nice setup if you do have a family. So when you think about it, most people are probably in my same or similar situation where, you do have a lot pulling at you. And that's why I think really, if we could help the industry get some better fam products, better planning on all of our parts, and the post fams situation, because when you get home, your inbox is flooded and you're overwhelmed, and now you have hundreds of photos that you're like, what am I going to do with this? Right. So it's like all of those things need to come together, and I think if we kind of think more full circle on the whole experience, we'll get a better return on investment.
I could not agree with you more. As long as we are going to put this investment out there, and I'm actually going to pull up the slides right now on the screen. On the right-hand side is individual fam advisor expenditure. So this is the weighted average of everybody in the pool. So, the largest group on the individual side was spending somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500 per trip. And on the left-hand side is 500 to 1,000. So actually that shouldn't be per year. That that is per year. So the average travel advisor is spending $2,555 a year on individual fam trips. And on the group side, they're spending a little under $2,000. So I guess that's inclusive of air and the cost of the fam itself. Okay. That's huge for someone who's making 55, 65 grand. If you're doing really well, you've got a couple of ICs, you're making over 6 figures. Congratulations. That's still a large investment.
Yeah, it is.
So, before we jump off on FAMs, one of the interesting things that came out in the research was that people interested in, not interested, I'm sorry. The way it was phrased was the question, what do you value most about fam trips? And the difference between number 2 and number 1 was about, 30% difference. Number 1 was room inspections. Do you believe that travel advisors value room inspections so much more than everything else? Because everything else flattened out around 4.7, 4.6, 4.5. Do you think that's because that's the way we've structured FAMs? Or is the room inspection that important for you to market and sell travel to your clients?
So I think this is really subjective, and I think it's skewed because my number one thing is the overall vibe of the resort. I really
Right.
pick up on an energy. I'm looking at the other people. I'm just checking out the vibe.
Right.
That is number one for me. But yeah, I would feel weird if we didn't see any rooms.
Right.
But I don't also need to see 10 rooms either. And I think honestly, the resort is picking out which room you're seeing. So
Yes.
I think there's just a little,
A disconnect.
discrepancy there. It's kind of like, I would love to say, I want to see your lowest room category.
Right.
And I want to see maybe your highest or whatever.
Or like a club floor or some kind of special
one on
floor.
the club floor, one.
Yeah.
So you just got to think about that. And again, this is some of like just the smarts you need to have when going on these FAMs. I knew that they were showing me this room. I heard that I know their other rooms are not good, or they're like, oh, we don't have this one available for you. I'm like, oh, how convenient.
Yes.
So, I think showing one or two is fine, but I don't know.
We're going to talk a little bit now about education portals. When we asked travel advisors, what's the most important place they go to for education? Number 1 was FAMs. Industry conferences, I think, was number 2. No, the conference hosted by a supplier, like maybe Delta Vacations when they fly everybody to Atlanta or something. That was number 2. And I think industry conferences was number 3. Do you place a lot of emphasis on prioritizing education through supplier portals or a destination certification program? Does that help you run your business and build it effectively?
That is a great question. I think it is part of the piece.
Right.
I created my own training.
You
I
did.
told you I was a teacher before, so I kind of had a lot of fun with this. But I created my own training for my agents that they have to do. Yes, I sprinkle in, okay, they're interested in this supplier or their niche is falling into this supplier. So then I do point them to that. But, it's not like a sole thing that you could rely completely on the supplier trainings, and some are better than others.
Right. It's interesting. I tell this story over and over again. In the dead of last summer, a friend of mine posted on her Facebook page that she had just completed the certification program of a major ocean cruise line. And I private messaged her and I said, can I ask you a question? I said, how many hours was it? I think she said it was 20 hours. And I said, what was the purpose of that? Why is that going to make you a better business owner? And she didn't have an answer.
Right.
She said, I needed to know more about that particular cruise line. I said, oh, okay. So, do you have a sales plan now that you know more about that cruise line? Do you have a sales plan to try to maximize their sales and your profits? She said, no. And that's been one of my big concerns, is that without the context of what do I do with this as a business owner, these education portals, and there's so many of them. I mean, how many certificates can you get? And once you get it, how many require that you recertify every year, yada, yada, or they upgrade it and you've got to go back in now and learn what they upgraded about. Do you think that education portals work for the travel advisor community, or do you think like a knock-on effect is it can actually be a drag on the ability to make money and sell better?
Yeah, I mean, I always tell my agents, sales comes first. Sales
Yes.
comes first. I mean, that's just what it is.
We
So,
only eat what we kill, is what I tell people. When
yeah,
you are self-employed, if you don't hunt it down, you don't eat tonight.
right. Right. I mean, and it's just not quality education too. I mean, I don't want to get on like that whole avenue, but it's just not that great, especially now that everyone's learning on the computer. Now there's so many ways to be interactive.
Yes.
Those are really falling flat. I mean, I haven't brought myself to do one in a while. And I do need to do the Hawaii updated one. I need to kind of go back and, finish some, because that's another thing. I don't think everyone finishes them.
Yeah.
So,
I'm taking an email certification, an email marketing certification course, just to have the certification, and it's a refresher. And it's like I'm doing it in bits and pieces because I got to earn a living every day too.
right,
Yeah.
right. So yeah, it's managing your time, and I think a coaching model or mentoring is
Yeah.
far better investment of time and
Totally.
probably money. I guess those cost money, but it's much better than just sitting and doing product knowledge.
Yes. I hear that all the time from my clients, is that when I'm on a coaching call with them and we're working through a specific problem where they can tangibly apply what we're teaching them, then it starts to come to life, and then they retain it too. They're like, oh, you've taught it, and now that I'm applying it, I see that this depends on this. I got to get that done first. And now that I find you forced me to be in the tool that fixes that problem, now I see how it leads. And you see the light bulbs literally go off during coaching sessions. They're like, I got
Right.
it. That's such a breakthrough when you see them sigh and go, oh, the light bulb went off.
Yeah. No, that's so great for sure. Uh,
So, do you know of a supplier that's doing a really great job on that sales side, where their education portal, the coaching models, their fam trips, that they're making you a better salesperson on their behalf? Is there anybody out there who's doing like a job that you're ready to praise them right now?
I mean, honestly, not off the top of my head. I will say that I think Sandals kind of stands out a little more, because they do at least tell you add on these to make more money. I mean, they want you to upsell, but
Right.
that's really the only brand that I've heard about like upsell, upsell, upsell. I just haven't, and maybe I haven't completed enough trainings through the other suppliers, but
There's only so much time in the day.
right, right. And I really, that AM Resorts one is just very like, you just go through it's just one-sided, where Sandals makes you go in person. So,
Right.
that probably has to do with it. In person is always valuable, but I think I know you're probably going to be segmenting into BDMs. And I think that's another piece to this education.
In what way?
I really think BDMs need to kind of take on a coaching role.
Yes.
They don't have to coach you how to do your business, but they have to kind of take their product and figure out how to coach agents and agency owners how to market their product and how their product is going to help us make more money.
Yes.
So I think that's the mentality I really want to see. And I only, there's some great BDMs out there, and those great BDMs have thought about my business, have asked about my business, and then has ideas.
That alone must make you feel good, that either they express something they've learned about you and your business and parroted it back to you, so they're paying attention.
Right.
But then, based on their knowledge of their product, they're maybe even starting to head down that path of, if she does this, if I'm watching her do this and she does it really well, and I know my business can increase her close rate by 20% if she just tweaks a couple of things. And I'm going to go coach her on my visit today. I'm going to coach Lauren about that. That must make you feel so good to know that somebody cares enough to think that way.
Absolutely. So we need more of that. We
We
need
do.
more of that.
I
So
agree. I have been to way too many trade shows where a BDM has been manning a trade show booth, and I'm asking really business oriented questions, not questions around, you're today at this trade show booth, you're promoting this brand new resort you just opened in Punta Cana, and they know everything about that resort. But when you ask them, well, why is that resort different from the ones you have on these three islands and the two in Mexico? Help me understand the difference in the ideal client, or maybe the ideal client's the same. And they look at you glassy eyed.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's where you could have applied some coaching to travel advisors. You should know that. You should be able to help them with that.
Right. So anytime a BDM needs to talk to me, if I could read it on a piece of paper, I don't want to know about it. Right. I want to get more of that coaching and hands-on. I want them to be authentic and real, just how our followers want that from us.
Yes.
We want that from the BDMs.
Yep. When I was at American Express and I was helping run a sales and client management team, our development classes, they were all virtual because everybody was spread out all across the United States and Canada. The best attended and the best engagement, because we surveyed everybody after they would take one of our webinars, were the ones where a successful salesperson, one of their peers, was walking them through examples of success. How did I close on that difficult merchant in that new category we're trying to open up? That's what so many people who want to learn to sell better, that's the formula for them to go, wait a second, I know a client that looks like that. Maybe I need to try what you just told me and see if it works.
Right. Absolutely.
So, I don't want to point any fingers at any names of companies, but do you find that there is a connection between leaders for a supplier or destination and how good the BDMs are on that team? I have a couple of friends who are vice presidents of sales and travel. I think the world of them. They are warm, authentic, smart people. And I'm curious now to start meeting the BDMs who work below them to see how that flows down. Do you find that there's a connection between the two?
There probably is. I mean, I could definitely imagine that. And I think that good BDMs, like, when you get a good BDM, because you're like, oh, wow, this is like, we're having a meeting here and we're actually like coming up with ideas. It's more like a brainstorming session, that kind of thing. So that they probably their higher ups did that with them, and they had to say, well, how are you going to bring sales in the Southeast market, on these agencies? Or why do you need to go visit this agency all the way out here? And, they have to have a plan. And I wish they would do that with us. I wish we had a little more guidance on coming up with a plan and using suppliers instead of just going on their portal and doing that, right? That's low risk for everyone involved. And it's just, you get what you get, right? Whatever you put into that, you get out, and it's not much. So when BDMs make the effort and really sit down with you, time and face-to-face, I think is huge. And I really don't want to see everyone hiding behind these computers because it's cheaper to do so. I think that there still needs to be a little bit of, commitment, and, what the BDMs that do that, I'm going to consider putting more business there.
It's going to be interesting to see as industry conferences return and we get out more. I'm heading to my first industry conference in 2 weeks. I will be moderating a panel discussion at an ASTA chapter meeting, literally right about now, 2:00 in the afternoon, 2 weeks from today. And I'm going to be talking to these, sales leaders about this whole issue. If you had one tip for them, and I will take your tip and I will mention it to each one of them when I see them in 2 weeks, what would you say that number one tip to them about their BDMs would be?
Yeah, I think having a coaching mentality and having an idea of communicating how we could grow our business with that specific supplier. So forget the product, or yes, fine, give me the PDF or the printout because I will read it.
Right.
But I think, if they can just understand that we need to be authentic and grow our businesses together, and you give me the tools or ideas on how to do it, I'd much rather that than get them go through a PowerPoint with me on new products or updates.
Have you ever stopped a BDM, if they set up a sales call via Zoom or whatever, or back in the day when we got to sit at a coffee shop together, have you ever said that to a BDM who sat down and they started walking through a bunch of stuff? Did you ever say to them, look, I know all of this. Can I ask you to do the following? Or have you tried to, if a BDM calls you, have you ever said to them, great, you want to come see me? Here's what I need you to do to make that 45 minutes worthwhile.
Yeah. I give them a time limit because right. Busy mom here. How do you think I get anything done?
A 4-year-old on your hands.
We don't have time, and I don't want to wait.
Right.
Yeah, we don't want to waste time. That's like my pet peeve. Even when I was a teacher, I didn't even want to waste like 6-year-olds' time. I'm like, we got to get through this content or whatever. So right. I really want to utilize time and my agent's time. If I'm making my ICs do this, I want it to be worthwhile. So yeah, I do have a supplier coming. We have a meeting next week. I told her the time limit, and I'm going to revisit back with her saying, hey, we need to go over like this, and save Q&A at the end, because I do want a little dialogue, and right. I am going to do that for sure.
But I don't need to hear about all the resorts. Send me the URLs. I'll go check it out if I'm interested.
Basically, I'll leave some time at the end, but I want to get through why I use them, certain things for right. sure.
So wrap up question. Let's go back to the fact that you have been a teacher. How many years did you teach? Did I lose you? Can you still hear me? Lauren, I think I lost you. I don't know if you froze.
Oh no, I think I'm losing you.
Okay. No, it froze on my side too.
I've completely lost you.
Okay.
Are we back?
I hear you. Okay. So how many years were you a teacher?
I taught for 10 years.
Taught for 10 years. You got your master's in teaching.
Yep.
As a person who both studied education and practiced it, what do you think are the 1 or 2 biggest lessons about the way people ingest information and retain it that you don't see necessarily applied in education and travel that maybe we should think about fixing? Are there any things based on your professional career as an educator that you'd love to see the industry apply to this profession? Yeah.
So I do think that learning by doing is the most important thing. So coming up with some scenarios of a supplier's ideal market, ideal client, and what scenarios, what kind of paint the situations for me, and have me figure out how to upsell them or whatever.
Right.
I think that you also learn by doing. So going to these FAMs and experiencing, whether it's not like they have to wine and dine us the whole time, but give us one experience at a property. Give me one of your best experiences here or there, just giving me a little snapshot of that experience. So if we do it, we could turn around and sell that for sure.
Yes.
And then my last thing I would say with maybe some of the online learning is I want to know what I'm going to get out of the training. They just say, do the training and we'll give you X, Y, and Z. But before I do it, get my mind going, because you'll retain more if you're putting what you want in there. Or maybe if we do have a BDM come here to do a training, have them ask us, what do we want out of it?
It's so fun. It's so funny you say that, because not only did I run the sales and client management training out to my people, so we would look at things like new categories that we were trying to sell American Express merchant acceptance to, but very often Other people from the rest of America Express would want our sales and client management team to sell something on their behalf because that's a warm sales lead. The person already accepts the card or they're about to accept the card. Hey, maybe we can upsell them. And so the first thing, they had to fill out a form. Anybody who wanted to talk to my sales and client management team, they had to fill out a form. And there were 3 bullets midway through this form that they had to fill out. Tell me what my student, my sales and client management team, what are they going to walk away from this session able to do? If you can't describe that, I'm hitting delete on your form. You need, and it can't be, they're going to know how to sell my stuff. You got to put them in the shoes of a salesperson standing in front of the client. The client has needs. How would you describe your solution? And I need 3 of those.
Yeah.
And that short circuited a lot of garbage training.
Right.
Because they couldn't describe it.
Yeah.
It was.
So then what's the point?
Exactly. That's what I would say to them. So what's the point? You're going to have my people sitting on their laptop watching your webinar for 45 minutes. And they're not going to go and sell what you did because you didn't give them the context that makes them better salespeople and maybe helps them close their sale with their client, because the solution for the client's problem is described in the training. If you didn't do that, then you haven't done your work. I don't want to hear about it. I used to get a lot of nasty phone calls from directors and VPs outside the team going, why are you being so tough on us?
I know, but it's like, well, if you listen to me, it will work. It will help people. It will make it worth it.
Exactly.
For sure.
Lauren, thank you so much for taking time out today. I am hoping that more travel advisors like you will take me up on this to have these kind of conversations. I've got a piece of paper sitting next to me. I was taking notes to try to get more VPs and directors pushing your advocacy up to the senior levels. Gary Sadler at Beaches told me in a telephone call that I did with him a couple of months ago, he said a lot of this kind of feedback filtered up to him over the years, but certainly last year because of COVID. And they redesigned their fam trips, the Back to the Beach campaign, with travel advisors being front and center. I've had more travel advisors call me or message me and say, Rich, what you just talked about, I'm literally at a Sandals fam right now, and they're doing exactly what you said. And that's when I finally called Gary and I'm like, I got to talk to you. How did this happen? I said to him. And he said it came from a bunch of places, but it's that feedback loop of pushing stuff at these people doesn't help. And that's not what's going to motivate sales. So I do know that some people are listening. We just need a lot more Gary Sadlers in the world.
Yes. Agreed.
Okay, Lauren, thanks for taking time out. Go take care of that 4-year-old if you need to.
I will. It was so nice to have me on this. I love chatting with you.
Thank you so much. And we will invite you back soon.
Okay.